Before we jump into the facts of Ex Parte McCardle, it's crucial to understand the meaning of two important concepts: appellate jurisdiction and the exceptions clause. Appellate jurisdiction is the power of a court to hear appeals from the decisions of lower courts. For example, the U.S. Supreme Court has appellate jurisdiction over judgments of the circuit courts, and the U.S. Circuit Courts have appellate jurisdiction over judgments of the district courts. The second important concept to understand is the exceptions clause. The exceptions clause, found in Article 3 of the Constitution, is one of the major checks the Constitution places on the judicial branch. This clause grants Congress the power to make exceptions to the Supreme Court's appellate jurisdiction over cases. Or put differently, the exceptions clause gives Congress the power to strip the Supreme Court of jurisdiction over particular types of cases. With that background, let's discuss Ex Parte McCardle. Just after the Civil War, William McCardle, a Mississippi newspaper editor, was arrested by the federal government for publishing newspaper articles that were critical of the post-Civil War Reconstruction and military occupation of the South. The federal government justified McCardle's arrest on the grounds that he violated several provisions of the Reconstruction Acts, a set of federal statutes passed by Congress after the end of the war. McCardle sought a writ of habeas corpus from a federal court in his home state of Mississippi, but was unsuccessful. McCardle then asked for appellate review of his habeas corpus petition in the United States Supreme Court, relying on an 1867 congressional statute that permitted the Supreme Court to have appellate jurisdiction over such cases. But in 1868, while McCardle's case was pending, Congress repealed the part of the 1867 statute on which jurisdiction over McCardle's appeal relied. President Andrew Johnson vetoed the repeal, but Congress immediately overrode the veto. The Supreme Court granted certiorari to determine if it had jurisdiction to hear the case. The issue on appeal was whether Congress may withdraw jurisdiction from the Supreme Court after that jurisdiction has been given. In a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court held that Congress can in fact withdraw the Supreme Court's jurisdiction. Writing for the majority, Chief Justice Chase reasoned that although its appellate jurisdiction is derived from Article 3 of the Constitution, that jurisdiction is ultimately conferred, quote, with such exceptions and under such regulations as Congress shall make, unquote. In its 1867 Act, Congress had previously affirmed the Supreme Court's exercise of appellate jurisdiction over habeas corpus actions, but repealed that provision of the Act in 1868. By doing so, Congress exercised its constitutional right to limit Supreme Court jurisdiction. Thus, the Supreme Court had no jurisdiction to consider McCardle's petition for a writ of habeas corpus, and the case was dismissed. The following year, in Ex Parte Yerger, the court found that it did have the authority to review habeas decisions made by lower federal courts under the Judiciary Act of 1789. Ex Parte McCardle serves as the key example of how the Supreme Court has historically interpreted the exceptions clause, and is a landmark decision in terms of the separation of powers and the checks and balances the branches of the federal government have over one another. In fact, this case once again earned attention in the context of habeas corpus petitions by enemy combatants held by the United States government during the War on Terror. Justice Scalia cited the case in his dissent from Hamdan v. Rumsfeld in support of his position that the Supreme Court is without power to review such petitions if Congress has exercised its authority to limit the court's jurisdiction. If you found this video helpful, you can explore all of our content by visiting us at Quimbee.com. If you have a question or comment about this case, please post it in the comments area below, and we'll do our best to get back to you. If you think we did a good job with this video, please like, share, and favorite it. And if you think this video might be helpful to people you know, please share on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Google+ as well, to get this video out there. If you haven't done so already and you enjoy watching videos on this channel, click on the red subscribe button just below this video so you can get all the latest updates.